Not all fighters can have that samurai-like approach to the martial arts, or at least in some cases, we get to see fighters who just don't handle a victory with any sort of grace. And for this video, we're going to look at some of the classic examples of MMA fighters who showed absolutely no respect after a win. Jon Jones. In this early title defense in the reign of the youngest champion in UFC history, Jon Jones faced Lyoto Machida, a former 205-pound king known for his elusive striking and highly technical style. Jones was the reigning champion and heavily favored to retain his title. In the first round, though, Lyoto's odd darting style was causing the young fighter some issues. But if you ever needed concrete proof of Jones's ability to adapt on the job, it did not take him long here. In the second round, Jones capitalized on a mistake by Machida, knocking him down with a Superman punch before securing a standing guillotine choke that rendered his opponent unconscious. Instead of gently guiding Machida to the canvas, Jones let the lifeless body of this fighting legend drop to the mat, showing a lack of respect for his defeated opponent. Jones's action was met with criticism and viewed as disrespectful by the MMA community.
It felt like you had a little swag in your step when you walked away there. Just let him fall to the ground.
Hey, it was a good fight, and I'm just grateful that I won it.
Sure, it didn't exactly overshadow his victory, but it did leave us with a bitter taste in the aftermath of an otherwise impressive performance. Israel Adesanya. In a highly anticipated middleweight title fight, Israel Adesanya squared off against the undefeated Paulo Costa. Adesanya, known for his highly technical striking style and flamboyant personality,
yeah, if you have to fight a friend, I'll fight my grandma, but she's dead. Whoa.
Had engaged in a heated war of words with Costa.
I feel shame for that fight, but I will destroy him.
He sucks at it, that's the thing. He sucks at trying to talk trash as well, and he's easily influenced. I can flick his nose and you'll see him bark at the cage.
Leading up to the bout, Adesanya showcased his striking prowess, picking Costa apart throughout the fight. In the second round, after a totally dominant effort, Adesanya secured a TKO victory with a swift combo, putting Borrachina down for good. But what followed shocked many. Instead of showing sportsmanship, Adesanya celebrated his win by performing a humping gesture over his fallen opponent. The gesture was met with widespread criticism from fans and UFC officials alike.
I didn't see when I was there on the cage, but I saw now. I disapprove 100%. And to me, this is mortal now.
Many viewed it as disrespectful and unsportsmanlike, an unnecessarily crude moment that kind of ruined an otherwise great highlight. The act drew condemnation from Dana White and highlighted the importance of showing respect in victory, regardless of the pre-fight buildup. Shina Aoki. In a lightweight bout held on Japanese soil, the icon Shina Aoki faced Mizuto Hirota in a high-stakes matchup. Aoki, a renowned submission specialist, showcased his skills as per usual, securing a brutal Kimura that he cranked and cranked and cranked until Hirota's arm totally snapped. Despite the clear agony Hirota was in, Aoki displayed a shocking lack of respect in the direct aftermath. Instead of showing concern for his injured opponent, Aoki laughed in Hirota's face and brazenly gave him the middle finger. The act of disrespect was met with outrage from fans and fellow fighters. Sure, there was obviously enough bad blood between these two to allow a reaction like this to come to the fore, but once the fighting in the cage is done, that should be enough for most guys to put their hard feelings behind them and bury the hatchet. Aoki, though, he decided to save his greatest insult for last. Jorge Masvidal. In a highly anticipated grudge match, the veteran favorite Jorge Masvidal faced off against the still undefeated Ben Askren, a highly decorated wrestler known for his dominant ground game. Masvidal, who was more revered for his striking prowess, vowed to make a statement in the fight, one that would continue his ongoing resurrection in style. What followed was one of the most shocking moments in MMA history. Just 5 seconds into the bout, Masvidal uncorked a flying knee that landed flush crush on Askren's chin, rendering him totally unconscious. But it was what happened next that rubbed some fans the wrong way. Instead of showing sportsmanship or concern for his fallen opponent, Masvidal immediately taunted Askren by mockingly tapping the mat and then later pretending to be KO'd stiff next to him on the canvas. The act of disrespect was met with both praise from Masvidal's fans and criticism from those who found it unsportsmanlike. The moment added fuel to the fire of Masvidal's persona as a trash-talking showman, and in many ways, it remains one of the MMA's greatest revenge stories. Because, let's face it, Askren talked some mad trash coming into this one.
I mean, I'm paid to fight in the octagon, and we can do it for 15 minutes, and I don't want any chances that he's gonna do something stupid before the fight and ruin it.
TJ Dillashaw. In a highly emotional and bitter matchup, TJ Dillashaw faced off against his former teammate and bitter rival, Cody Garbrandt, for the bantamweight title. The animosity between the two was palpable, and the fight had all the markings of a heated showdown. Once brothers, these two had seen their relationship break down entirely, with TJ becoming public enemy number one to those who still trained in Team Alpha Male. On fight night, it was one hell of a clash, with both men scoring early knockdowns. In the second round, though, it was Dillashaw who sealed the deal with a TKO victory, becoming the new bantamweight champion. But the rivalry did not end there. Immediately after the referee stopped the fight, Dillashaw roared in Garbrandt's face, letting all of his frustration out in one massive explosion of energy. The gesture added insult to injury for Garbrandt, who was already reeling from the loss. They proved that their rivalry was far from over when the pair engaged in an even more heated rematch, which TJ won again. But all in all, this was definitely one of the era's defining fighter feuds. Khabib Nurmagomedov. In one of the most highly anticipated fights in MMA history, Khabib Nurmagomedov faced off against Conor McGregor for the lightweight title at UFC 229. The build-up to the fight had been marked by intense animosity between the two camps. Lines relating to culture, race, family, and teams were crossed constantly, mainly by Conor.
Truly love putting a bad beating on this little glass jaw rat.
But Nurmagomedov would allow his fighting to do the talking when it mattered most. In the UFC 229 main event, Khabib showcased his superior grappling skills and dominated the fight, submitting McGregor in the fourth round. However, what happened after the fight was even more memorable than the victory itself. In the immediate aftermath of the submission, Khabib jumped the cage and attacked McGregor's team, sparking a chaotic brawl outside the octagon. The shocking post-fight melee was met with widespread criticism and condemnation from the UFC and the MMA community. It was the biggest news story in sports, a shocking skirmish that came at the very end of MMA's most watched event of all time. But to say that it did damage to the sport's reputation would be putting it lightly.
Suspension for Khabib. These guys going to get visas again to get back in the country. Big fines.
Ronda Rousey. In a highly anticipated rematch of their initial bout in Strikeforce, Ronda Rousey faced off against Miesha Tate in defense of her UFC Women's Bantamweight Championship. The rivalry between the two had been bitter, and the tension was pretty heavy leading up to the fight. Rousey, known for her dominant judo skills, secured an armbar submission victory over Tate in the third round. However, what happened after the fight left a lasting mark on their feud. Instead of showing sportsmanship and shaking Tate's hand as is customary, Rousey refused to do so and walked away from her defeated opponent. It was yet another moment that solidified Rousey's reputation as a sore winner, and though we didn't know it yet, she would eventually prove that she was an even worse loser when her winning streak finally came to a brutal end. Miesha Tate would eventually go on to become a champion and a fan favorite, and you could argue that her standing with the fans is currently in a much better place than Ronda's. Funny how that works. Brock Lesnar. In a heated heavyweight clash between two divisional legends, Brock Lesnar faced Frank Mir in a rematch following their first encounter. Lesnar had suffered his first professional loss to Mir in their initial bout and was eager for redemption, and this time things would be very different. This more experienced Lesnar dominated the fight, showcasing his tremendous wrestling and ground and pound skills. He secured a TKO victory over Mir to earn his first defense as champ, proving that he was becoming a more complete mixed martial artist. However, instead of showing humility in victory, Lesnar went off, continuing to taunt and trash talk his defeated opponent.
Frank Mir had a horseshoe up his ass. I told him that a year ago. I pulled that sumbitch out and I beat him over the head with it.
Uttering the now legendary line about that horseshoe that Mir had stowed away where the sun doesn't shine. But all in all, this was definitely one of MMA's most pro-wrestling-esque moments. And who better than the legendary Brock Lesnar to deliver it?